Welcome everyone to our third crew engagement chat stream. Right now I'm sitting with the very wonderfully dressed Captain Richard Abele, U.S. Naval Reserve. So, Captain Abele, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
I'm honored to be here and thank you for the invitation to participate.
So, Captain Abele has served for how long again?
32 years in the Navy.
32 years in the Navy, rising, of course, to the rank of Captain 06, and even commanded his own destroyer. Is that
Actually, correct? It was two mine hunters.
Two minesweepers.
Back in the 1980s.
And what were their names?
The Tiki and the Widgeon.
The Tiki and the Widgeon. So, Captain Abele, you are definitely the highest ranking person we've interviewed thus far, and in fact the only officer we have interviewed thus far. So, tell us, what made you first interested in joining the Navy?
I come from a Navy family. My father served in the Navy for many years, World War II veteran, and reached the rank of captain. His father was a Naval Academy graduate, also did a career in the Navy, reached the rank of captain, and his father. So we've had a long line of Navy officers who've reached that rank, and I wanted to continue the tradition and serve my country, and so I set out to make the Navy a career after I graduated from college.
Very nice. And in fact, your family has actually had a few ships named after
That's correct. There was a destroyer named after a cousin of mine that was built during World War II, but unfortunately it was sunk in the Battle of Okinawa near the end of the war. Also, another family member commanded a submarine during World War II as well.
Very nice. And the destroyer was the USS Manor L. Abele, is that correct? Very nice. So right now, hey, we've already got a few people watching. That's always nice. So right now, what we're going to do, because obviously this is also a part game stream as well, we like to take out our very big ships. In this case, the battleships. This game has both the Iowa and the Missouri featured. Len, you'll be probably amused to know, was very disappointed it did not have New Jersey.
Right.
But so we'll be taking it out to battle a bit while we talk. So, you went to college and then joined the military. Tell us how you got started and how you ranked up.
After I graduated from the University of California at Santa Barbara back in 1965, I went to Officer Candidate School in Newport, Rhode Island, received my commission there, and my first set of orders sent me here to Long Beach, where I was posted as a operations officer on an ocean-going minesweeper for 2 years.
Nice.
And then after that, they sent me to Vietnam at my request, where I served for a year in country running patrol craft both in Cam Ranh Bay and down in the Mekong River Delta.
Well, that must have been rather exciting in every sense of the word.
It was. It was a challenging assignment. It had its ups and downs, a little bit of engagement with the bad guys, but for the most part I was operating a squadron of patrol craft, just trying to keep the harbor safe for our allied shipping.
I'm sure you did very well, and thankfully you didn't get hurt. So
True.
We're glad that you're still here with us today.
Thank you.
And then what did you do after Vietnam?
Well, after that tour of duty, I went back to the States and got another tour aboard a helicopter aircraft carrier, the USS Tripoli, an LPH, and went right back to Vietnam for another deployment as gunnery officer. Went into Da Nang in South Vietnam, pulled out the 1st Marine Division and brought them back to Okinawa, and went back to Da Nang again and pulled out more Marines and took them back to San Diego.
Very nice. So, after we pulled out of Vietnam, you must have been sent elsewhere too, huh?
Well, actually, I then left active duty and went into the reserves and went into the amphibious part of the Navy for many years, and then followed by assignments with the repair fleet.
Nice.
And then back into mine warfare, where I eventually got my first command at sea.
Very good. And what was that first
That
command?
was the mine hunters here based in Long Beach.
Very good. And any particularly fun or exciting or silly stories that you have from those days?
Well, we were working with side scan sonar, and our primary purpose was to sweep and check all the harbors here on the West Coast, as well as the entrances, exits, the anchorages, the berths, and so forth, looking for mine-like objects and just being sure that the Soviets weren't mine laying here without our knowledge.
That would be bad. Yeah. So, you carried on basically through the reserves and through minesweeping until you left the Navy, or?
Actually, after I got promoted to captain, I did a tour with the Commander Naval Forces Japan for a year, and then from there I went and joined the Admiral staff down in San Diego, where I was a instructor and a member of the Admiral staff teaching commanding officer courses as well as leadership until I retired in 1995.
Very nice. So you've had an incredibly long and storied career then.
It's been nothing but fun and challenging and very rewarding.
Very good. And so that brings you to here. So how did you get started with the
I've been following battleships for many years as they've been coming and going in and out of the Navy, and I read about the Iowa being picked up by the Pacific Battleship Center in 2011, and its movement up there to Richmond for refurbishment. And as soon as a word got out on the media that it was coming to San Pedro, I immediately volunteered to be in the initial crew to help man the ship with tour guides.
Very nice.
So I joined in May of 2012, and I've been aboard the ship ever since.
So you've been here pretty much from the beginning.
Absolutely.
So, I've seen your face on the volunteer of the quarter award several times over. You're involved in pretty much several different departments, including tours as well as the overnights and such like that.
Yeah, I'm also involved in fundraising. I'm a training instructor, a photographer. I'm on the AAW Anti-Aircraft Warfare Special Projects team.
Nice.
And a reporter for the Broadside, and keeping my hands active in a number of projects.
Very good. And we're certainly grateful for you to be here, not only as part of the ship, but also be here being interviewed today. So, yeah, quite the battle we got going here, and unfortunately I'm not seeing any good shots. The only one I have is this destroyer, but he seems to be slowing down for me, so let's see if I can tag him a bit. And right as I send off that shot, look who pops up. So I'll be regretting my life very shortly. Which is rather standard when it comes to this game, I have to say. Speaking of regretting my life. So, while I continue to die horribly, so obviously you are impeccably well dressed today. Mind telling us on the stream what's going on today?
Yes, today we are hosting an event honoring a African-American retired Major General in the Army, Major General Gravitt. And he will be coming aboard to receive the Vice Admiral Gravely Award for his leadership and performance as a senior officer in the U.S. Army.
Very good.
So I am one of the invited guests to be here for that event.
And in fact, far more than merely an invited guest, you are one of the speakers, are you not?
No, I'm not a speaker that I'm aware of.
Oh.
But I will be just here as a guest.
Well, we are very happy to have you.
Thank you.
And for those who may be less aware of the name, Vice Admiral Gravely, and I'm dead. Vice Admiral Gravely is one of, if not the first African American to reach flag rank, was he not?
He was the first, and he was also the first black officer to serve on a battleship.
Very nice.
And serving on the Iowa starting in 1952. He was on board for 2 years.
Very good. So, because we are well positioned in both name as well as place, we do love to honor our veterans, and so we do the best we can, even as I sink into the abyss here. But my poor skills in this game aside, so thankfully you are much better skilled than I at handling these ships, at least in real life. At least you haven't sunk like I just did. So, did 2 tours in Vietnam. Any particularly close calls that you had?
No, not really. It was mostly fairly routine service.
Okay.
Mostly patrol work.
Well, probably for the better. But yeah, we're very happy to have you, and we even got a few commenters and several people viewing us. So, let me tilt it so that you can see it better for you. And this is the chat room that we have, and these are the number of people that we have viewing right now. So,
you may have to read those questions to me because I can't see.
Don't worry. When any questions come up, when questions come up, I'll be sure to read them out to you. Right now, they're just chatting with each other.
Oh, okay.
So, you got your start in the official Navy, but transferred to the Navy Reserves.
Right.
And that was shortly after Vietnam, as you said, correct? So, was there a big difference between the Navy and the Navy Reserves?
Well, it was mainly, of course, the amount of time required. The Navy Reserve was 1 meeting a week or 2 days a month, depending upon the unit I was attached to, and then a 2-week active duty period every year. Mm-hmm. And I did that for many, many years, including additional active duty time as required to be competitive. Mm-hmm. But it was I had a parallel career with the Boeing Company and Rockwell International, serving in government contracting from the B-1 bomber as well as on the C-17 Globemaster program. So I had a long career in aerospace as well.
Very nice. And we have one commenter who unfortunately didn't make it at the very beginning. He missed the ships that you served on.
Okay, the first ship I served on was the USS Acme. It's a minesweeper, number 508. And then after my tour in Vietnam, I served on the USS Tripoli, an LPH-10. That was a helicopter aircraft carrier. It has since been decommissioned, but there is a new Tripoli under construction right now down in Pascagoula, and I hope to go to the commissioning of that ship this fall.
Very good. And we have another question. What was your favorite moment in the Navy?
The day I was notified that I had achieved the rank of captain. That was the stellar moment my entire career, because that was my goal from day one.
Very nice. So, want to tell us a little bit more about that? And how were you notified?
Got notified by a message that came out from the Chief of Naval Personnel to the various commands around the country. My command received it, and they sent it to me, I think by fax, and I got it that way. The same afternoon, I got a phone call also from my seniors down in San Diego. So it was sort of a double whammy all one day.
Must have been a very emotional day for you then.
It was great. I went out and bought a bottle of champagne, and my wife and I celebrated appropriately for the big event.
Very good, very good. Well, yeah. Of course, many of us, some of us have actually served in the Navy, or some people in the chat here, but most of us have not. So, but I imagine us making a rank that high must have been an incredible ride for you then.
It was. It was very competitive and very challenging. There were a lot of ticket punches, if you will, along the way, attending Naval War College, participating in wargaming at the War College, overseas assignments, all of those, including command, are all very important milestones along the way to make commander and then eventually captain.
Very nice. Are you, we have another question here. Are you excited that the Tripoli's name will live on in a new ship?
Very much so. I attended the decommissioning of my ship back in 1997, and then I got notified about 2 years ago that Tripoli had been selected to be the name of another amphibious assault ship, and Ingalls shipyard down in Pascagoula got the contract, and the ship has been christened. So it's afloat, and it's now getting ready to be commissioned this September. So yes, I am very much excited and hope to contact the shipyard this next week and find out if I can get an invitation to attend.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Yeah, excellent. And one other thing that I've always wondered about, I keep seeing, every time I give a tour, I keep seeing your father's, I presume, name down in the senior officers' quarters.
Yeah, that's the result of a fundraising program that I sort of headed up here on the ship about 3 or 4 years ago. And that's where we have different berths or racks or bunks were staterooms, cabins, all the areas where the enlisted and the officers sleep on board came up for adoption or sponsorship. And to set the standard and the goal and the precedent, I went ahead and sponsored that particular cabin in my dad's honor. So we had a plaque made, his uniforms from World War II are on display in there, a photo of him, and so that entire room has been set aside in his honor in perpetuity.
Excellent, and he's definitely deserving of it.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell some of us just what your dad did during World War II?
My dad was one of the earliest officers to be commissioned in the Naval Reserve back in 1933 when he graduated from Harvard University. He also elected to go on active duty earlier than most of his contemporaries in 1937 and was served aboard cruisers until the breakout of World War II. Went to the War College for 6 months while his current ship was being repaired because it took 2 torpedoes at Pearl Harbor, the USS Helena. And after his ship was repaired, he hopped aboard as the damage control officer and was on board all the way through the Solomons campaigns and the battles for Guadalcanal until it got sunk out from under him in the Battle of Kula Gulf. Oof. He went back to the States and picked up a new assignment, a helicopter carrier, escort jeep carrier that went out into the Leyte Gulf campaign, was the ship was damaged in an engagement with the battleships of the Japanese Imperial Fleet in Leyte Gulf, and he was sent back to the States, whereby he was then sent to new construction, the USS Columbus, and went aboard as damage control officer on the Columbus as a commander, and finished the war on board that ship. He continued to perform in the reserves, and in 1954 he was promoted to captain. Retired a couple of years after that. So he had a distinguished career mostly in World War II.
Very good. And what was, we have a question, he was part of Taffy 3 then?
He was, yes. He saw lots of action in the Leyte Gulf campaign, preceded, of course, by all those engagements in the Solomons and the South Pacific.
Nice. And what ship was he on specifically?
Well, the Helena was a light cruiser. That was the one that he was on in 42 and 43. Mm-hmm. And then the White Plains, the escort carrier that I mentioned in Leyte Gulf, and then at the end of the war, the heavy cruiser USS Columbus.
Wow. So he was on the White Plains during
the engagement with the Japanese and that surface fight.
Wow.
Yep.
In fact, White Plains can actually claim herself a kill, or at least a partial kill, from her anti-aircraft 5-inch gun mount.
That's exactly correct. There was a single 5-inch on there, and they fired everything, including grape shot and anything else they could fit in the barrel, according to my dad, and actually wound up sinking the Japanese destroyer with it. Quite amazing.
Wow, so he is very well deserving of that stateroom aboard the ship, then.
Thank you for that.
Wow. So, obviously, you come from a very long naval family. You want to tell us about some of your other relatives who served in the Navy?
Yes, my cousin, the officer that commanded the submarine in World War II, that was Richard Abele. He was a class of 21 at the Naval Academy, went into the submarine force, had a couple of commands, and then his last command was a brand new boat, if you will, the USS Grunion, which was commissioned the day after Pearl Harbor, the 8th of December. He got it prepared for sea and took it out on its first war patrol through Pearl Harbor and was assigned to the Aleutians. And on its first war patrol, he successfully sank 2 sub-chasers and 1 destroyer, and then was surfacing for an engagement with a Japanese merchant ship, and the merchant ship opened up with its deck guns on the conning tower of the Grunion, and for some unknown reason have never been able to determine the cause of the sinking, but the Grunion went down. Her dive planes were stuck in the down position. She never recovered, and she lost all hands, and she's currently in 3,300 feet of water. But a few years later, I went aboard a crabber with one of Commander Abele's sons, and looking for the sub, and we found the sub with a side-scan sonar, and have photographs as well as video of the submarine sitting on the bottom of the ocean.
Well, as unfortunate and sad as that is, that must have been very impressive to
It was a very heart-rendering moment as we looked at the remains of the sub, with all hands lost, of course.
Yeah. Unfortunately, not too uncommon for the submarine service that when something went wrong, they went badly wrong.
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, he got a destroyer named after him.
He did.
Which served very well until the Okinawa campaign.
In the Okinawa campaign, the USS Manuel Abele was on its, again, its first wartime patrol there in Okinawa as part of the AAW perimeter, and a kamikaze came in with a Baka bomb and flew directly into the midships of the destroyer, and she went down.
Oof.
She lost 20 or 30 men and 70 or 80 more injured, and the ship sank in about 11 minutes.
Mm.
But that was what happened to her.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, your father was, forgive me if this sounds rude, but luckier.
Yes.
Yes.
That's very true. He was.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine with that term.
And also, thankfully, you are.
Likewise.
We're definitely very lucky. So, what other cool or exciting stories any stories that you may want to share with us?
Well, one was when I was at the War College back in Newport, Rhode Island. I had an opportunity to be an exercise umpire, and they gave me 2 fleets, 2 4-star Admiral fleets to be responsible for, and they were mine warfare vessels, and the others were a bunch of destroyers, and we had to protect the homeland from the Orange forces, and we helped emerge victorious in that particular engagement in the wargaming. Of course, it's all set up that way, but nevertheless, that was a real thrill.
Very good. Well, I'm glad that you met as much success off the battlefield as you did on.
Yeah, that was fun.
I'm guessing that fun encapsulates many other emotions that went with it, but I can do that to you. So we have another question. Do you have a favorite port that you enjoyed visiting?
My favorite port would probably be San Diego.
San Diego?
Yeah, that Navy country. It's a beautiful port. Just a great place to visit. Very friendly. Nice place to live. Nice place to visit.
Very good. And of course, you must have been all around the world as well.
Well, not so much. Mostly in the Pacific.
Okay.
I just got back from the Philippines yesterday, as a matter of fact, and visited a port in Subic Bay where I used to go in with my ships. And we've been to Hong Kong, been to Japan, Korea, as well as a stop in Guam and Pearl Harbor. So those are the ports that I've been to, but never got to like Taiwan or Australia, but that's just a matter of the way the ships are deployed.
Indeed. And for those of you that wish to know more about Taiwan and Hong Kong, you may view the stream with Mario Mares, our CEC number 2.
Oh, yes.
That was one of the places where he visited, where he accidentally hung the flag upside down during ring pack, and that was very exciting for him. But we'll leave that story because you guys can view that otherwise. So, San Diego, of course, an excellent choice. Any favorite foreign ports that you were able to see, though?
Probably Hong Kong. Was in there for 5 days. I had a chance to tour the entire island as well as the new territories, eat in some fine restaurants. I had some 5 suits of clothes made, custom tailored in a 5-day period.
Very nice.
Eat in some great restaurants, and got a chance to see what that island was all about when it was still under the British domain.
Very good. Well, it must have been incredibly exciting and to go all around the Pacific.
It was. We spent a lot of time crossing the Pacific, 3 or 4 transits I've made. And of course, a lot of exercises along the way to keep you gainfully employed while you're underway standing watches.
Can't have it be a complete vacation on the government dime. That's just not allowed. So, obviously, you do so much here on board the ship. What are some of the favorite things that you love to do?
Well, my primary job here is a tour guide, and I enjoy particularly giving private tours. Groups sign up to be escorted by a paid volunteer. I'm not paid, but the ship does. And then so we get assigned to groups of either kids or parents or veterans or any other organizations that need a guide, and I'm more than happy to give them personal attention and a 2 to 3 hour tour of the ship.
Very nice. And as I recall, one of the other big things that you're involved in is restoring our flag bridge.
That's correct. Me and another shipmate here for the last 3 years have been responsible for the outfitting of the signal flags, bags, as well as the replacement of the halyards, getting the flags made, getting them repaired, getting them fixed, washed, hoisted. And today, as a matter of fact, it's interesting that we just got our second of 2 flag bag covers from a local flag manufacturing company, and were just installed this morning. So the Iowa's now got 2 brand new, beautiful flag bag covers covering our flags.
Very nice. So meanwhile, gameplay-wise, I suppose if I'm supposed to be here to both speak and play, I can't really do just one, so I'll start playing as well, and hopefully we have a better voyage than the first time around. So while we set off, I've noticed that you have a few battle stars there from Vietnam.
Yeah, I think I've got 9 campaign ribbons here, or something like that. I was over there during most of the middle part and the latter part of the war. From 68, 69, and 70 is when I was in Vietnam.
All right. And that was mostly patrol boats, as you said, correct?
Yes, plus the tour on the Tripoli, withdrawing Marines from Da Nang.
So what? Obviously, I'll know what you mean by patrol boats and keeping the rivers clear. But would you like to explain to some of our viewers just what that entailed?
Yes, as a harbor patrol officer, our responsibility was deploying patrol craft. We had different kinds: Boston whalers. We had small 50 caliber machine gun LCPLs, those are small craft, as well as some Mark 14 picket boats and a swift boat. So we had 4 different kinds of patrol vessels. Our job is to keep the harbors clear of any intrusions by the Viet Cong or by sappers, or these are swimmers, or anybody who represented the bad guys coming in and trying to sink either our anchored ships or the ships that were moored to the piers.
Very nice.
So, but keeping the waters in the harbors clear, as well as the rivers flowing into them, we were able to allow the Allied shipping to continue to unload and offload their cargoes without worrying about being attacked.
Obviously an incredibly important job.
Very important. We had harbor patrol craft in all 5 major harbors in Vietnam.
Very good. And as I come around the bend and can actually take my first shots here, and miss. I'll do better next time, folks. So plenty of excitement, of course, in Vietnam as well as home, all over the Pacific. Any particular part that stuck out the most to you? Or any part in particular that brings back the most memories? If that's not as terribly phrased as that question was, but...
I think one of the interesting events that occurred while I was in a fire base patrol center in the Mekong River Delta was we were also at an overhaul center. When boats came in that had been shot up, mainly swift boats, one particular boat came in and was repaired and brought back into seaworthy condition. And right near the end of my tour, they turned it over to me, and I got it. And it was hull number 94, and found out later that it belonged to John Kerry.
Wow.
And John Kerry was, of course, an officer that had seen combat in Vietnam. He was sent home after receiving 3 Purple Hearts and eventually became our Secretary of State.
Very nice.
So that was an interesting incident.
Did you ever get to meet Kerry, or
no,
just
Kerry
the boat?
had already been sent home before I got the boat.
All right. Well, definitely meeting famous people by proxy, I guess, at least.
That's right.
So, you've seen a whole lot of ships then. Small ships, big ships. Any particulars that were your favorites?
Yeah, I would have to say the battleship is, because when I was in Cameron Bay one day, the battleship New Jersey came in for a ammo reload, and my patrol craft did circles around the New Jersey to protect her, in exchange for that excellent protection service, while she was an anchor, they gave us a few gallons of ice cream.
Hey,
and
always
I'll
very
never
nice.
forget that. While she was unloading ammo, we were exchanging security for ice cream. So that was a highlight in Cameron Bay.
I can believe it, especially in what must have been that hot jungle, right? Very much so. So, any other interesting...
Well, there was one other real highlight in my reserve career. In 1984, I got selected to be an exercise umpire. So I went to the Anti-Submarine Warfare School in San Diego for 2 days of training, and then they sent me to San Francisco, where I embarked on a frigate, the Bronston, and rode her down to San Diego op area for some exercises, and then we took off to protect the aircraft carrier Enterprise.
Very nice.
And of course, opposing us were the Orange Forces, and we had numerous battles at sea, and our destroyer had the honor of detecting 2 submarines and acquiring both of them. So as an umpire, my job was to roll the dice and determine what damage, if any, our ship sustained, and what she in turn wound up doing against other vessels. So that was 2 weeks at sea of a lot of exercise work. It was a very rewarding time because I had just been promoted to commander, and had just been given my scrambled eggs in my hat, and I was the number 2 guy on board the ship for 2 weeks, and that was a real thrill.
Very nice. Well, obviously,
one of the hit again.
Yeah, I believe that anyone on this actual ship would be very, very grateful that I am not a 06 and that you are.
Captain Abele, your presence is requested on the quarterdeck.
Well, looks like they're calling for you, so thank you all for joining us, folks. Hope you all had a great time on the stream. We're going to call it a day today, and hope you join us next time. Take care, everyone.
Thank you very much.